Hello, my friends. I am Coach Quiggy, self-leadership coach, and I'm here for you young leaders out there who have a gift to give, you have an itch for service, a passion to pursue, maybe an entrepreneurial idea that you want to share with the world, but you're a human being too, and we all have challenges and insecurities and blocks that we have to work through. And the type of leadership that we need in the world right now and we need from you is one that is integrated, self-loving, self-confident, and living in integrity, really, is most importantly. But as I said, all of us human beings, whether we're leaders or not, we're subject to the challenges of being a human being in a very complex day and age. So today we're going to talk about comparison, which is something that I think is especially rampant right now in the social media era. And I first just want to normalize comparison. There's this phrase that I'm sure you've heard, that comparison is the root of all evil. First of all, I don't think that we can really polarize reality down to good and evil. I'm just not a fan of that whole narrative in general. I think that's something that has fallen down from the simplification, the reduction of reality from especially religious contexts. And so this idea that something is evil, something that we experience is evil, is really, there's a lot of shame and criticism in that. And so I want to invite you, as you're listening to this talk and running through these different ideas of how you can support your journey in doing less comparing and more just like self-centered, self-loving living, I want you to try to release the shame of it. I want you to try to show up and just acknowledge that we're all doing this. This is a normal human social mechanism, especially from an evolutionary perspective. You know, we have to look around and compare ourselves to others because we survived in groups. And the best way to keep ourselves in good standing with the group is to make sure that we're acting in accordance to the group. So we're really good, we're really perceptive about looking around and saying, oh, I see what they're doing, I better try to do what they're doing. And if I'm not doing what they're doing, well, I better beat myself up until I'm doing what they're doing so that I can stay in the group. Because what happens if you get kicked out of the group? You get your ass eaten up on the savannah, and we don't want that to happen. But in this day and age, with the social media landscape that we live in, where we're constantly having the temptation to look around, and it's really poking on this, again, this evolutionary vulnerability, this tendency to compare can really run on overdrive. And it's something that we have to become mindful of and again, be compassionate towards our tendency to do this. I still compare and look around, though I do 99% less of it than I did a year ago, 2 years ago, because of the application of the things that I'm gonna share with you here. So it's totally normal to compare. There's nothing wrong with you. And you have the responsibility, and with these tools and steps, the capacity to be able to shift away from doing so much comparing and imagine what your life would be like if you, instead of looking around at what other people are doing and beating yourself up because you're not doing the same thing, if you just felt really centered and grounded in yourself, how much more peace would you feel? How much more energy to be able to create and share and do the awesome things that you want to do would you have? That's the invitation here. So let's go to step one. Meditation. If you know me or you follow my stuff, you know that I use a lot of mindfulness practices as the foundational tool set with which I coach and teach communities. And there's good reason for this. Without awareness, there is no power. You cannot change anything that you do not understand or you cannot become aware of as it is happening. Certainly upon reflection, we can look back and notice patterns, but it's really the capacity to be able to notice things in real time and start to map the territory. In this case, the territory and the habits of comparison. What are the types of thoughts that I'm thinking? You know, you think about imagine when you're on social media and you're scrolling and you're looking at Joe Schmo over here and they're doing this and they're having their amazing life. What kind of thoughts come through your head? You know, oh man, I suck, and oh man, he's got it so good. Starting to become aware, and meditation as a practice, we can do as a daily practice, we can sit down and meditate and just learn to turn towards and become more aware of our experience. But then the mindfulness strength is then something that we can notice in daily life. And in this case, if you're meditating, when you're meditating regularly, you become more aware of, what am I thinking? What are the types of thoughts that occur when comparison is active for me? And then moving into the emotional aspect of this. How does that actually feel? And you might start to touch on some of the somatic experiences of shame or anxiety or sadness. There is an emotional quality that gets really triggered when we're comparing in a way that is unsupportive of ourselves. And we need to become aware of what that is. And finally, the deeper layer is, what are the beliefs about self that are driving this? And it's really difficult to build awareness around and inevitably touch on what's at the center of our comparison habits, in addition to the social drive that I was talking about. But for many of us, there is some core belief that I'm unlovable or I'm unworthy, or in order to get other people's attention or admiration, I need to be A, B, and C. We have to understand what the deeper layers are that are keeping us stuck in this habit of looking around, looking at other people's lives, and then using that as fodder to reinforce our negative beliefs about ourselves. And meditation as a practice is going to help us map this whole territory. And there's all sorts of different meditation practices that we can practice. If you are interested in trying some meditation, I have a bunch here on YouTube in the playlist labeled meditations, and you can try out some of those to get moving into a awareness of mindfulness that is not just supportive of healing comparison, but supportive of all your healing and all your growth and just being a better human being, a happier, healthier human being. So meditate it up. All right. Social media detox. This has been an absolute game changer for me. And I have grown up emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually on these deep experiential learning experiences. I grew up on summer camp. I have sat on over a dozen silent meditation retreats, and there's something special about removing yourself from your environment and taking what is often called refuge. Like a retreat is literally you're retreating from life, you're taking a break, you're taking a pause, and you get to be with yourself because you're going with you into the new space. You get to be with yourself and see all of the patterns, again, going back to the self-awareness piece, you get to see all of these patterns in play with the space of a new environment. And these are radically transformative experiences when we remove ourselves. Even going on a vacation can be like a retreat or a detox. And we do so intentionally so that when we return, all of the intense kind of charge around our habitual ways of approaching, in this case, social media, but if you were to do a sugar detox, for example, you would loosen the grip that sugar has on you, and you would loosen up the compulsions so that when you come back to whatever it is that you've detoxed or taken a break from, you're going to have more awareness, there's going to be more space and more room for responsiveness to be able to choose rather than just react based on what our conditioning is, based on what our wounding is, and based on what our patterns are. So in this case, social media detox is something that I do with all my clients, especially when comparison is really challenging for them. And we're removing negative influences. We're taking ourselves away from the space that is triggering this habit of comparison. And during that time, while we're detoxing from all this, we're going to focus inwardly. This is really a great opportunity as you think about how much time and energy you spend on social media on any given day. And even if only half of that is spent like kind of in comparison mode, it's still very draining. When you take time off, you get to, you have the value of all this extra energy that you can use to focus on yourself, focus on other things that fill your cup up, focus on your own personal growth. Noticing the difference and the discrepancy or the the absence of all of the comparing and the, the negative thoughts and emotions and beliefs that were in the previous slide, what happens when there's less of a trigger for that? You're going to have all this energy to be able to focus on yourself and focus on other pursuits or passions, your business, your schoolwork, or just taking care of yourself and trying something new and learning a new skill. Anything you want to do is up to you. Finally, we reintegrate intentionally. This is essential because our neural wiring is so strong. You think about if you're 23 years old, like you've been doing the social media thing. If you had a phone since you were 10, for 13 years, you have been training your brain to function a certain way with the phone. This is just an example. It doesn't matter how old you are, but just imagine how long you have reinforced the same patterns. So we can take a month off and we can come back, but those neural pathways are still going to be there. And we have to be really slow and intentional about the way that we return to these spaces in order to kind of guard against the tendency to just fall back into those really thoroughly ingrained neural patterns. And we want to create new neural pathways, new ways of relating to social media, new ways of relating to others around us that we're seeing that isn't triggering the same pain as comparison. And some of the things you can do is take some time to just clear out all of the people that are negative influences on your feed. Follow people that inspire you. This is a really important aspect of kind of a healthy manifestation of comparison. It's not necessarily, again, a bad thing. It's a normal thing, but how it affects us and with what intention we're approaching the way that we look around to other people for understanding ourselves, either worse or better. There's a lot of room for power in using comparison as a tool for inspiration. So instead of looking down at other people or looking around and then negatively at yourself, can I look up at people? And so something that you can do in your social media feed is follow and favorite people that inspire you, that build you up, that encourage or challenge you to be the best version of yourself. These are just a couple things that you can do with social media in order to create an environment, a new environment as you reintegrate that's going to support your best interests instead of perpetuating the tendency to compare. So the intention of social media detox is to clear out the system and start fresh. You can do this on your own. You can do it in a coaching container with me. You can also do it with a really great organization called No So November. One of my past clients, lifelong clients, she runs this organization. She's a young leader herself, and it's a beautiful, beautiful organization. They do a detox in community for the month of November every year, and I've done it 3 times, and it has absolutely changed my life. I still have to work on this stuff, but every time I reintegrate, it loosens up the grip of, again, that social vulnerability to compare and self-criticize. So give yourself a social media pause. You can even just do this for a week or a day and just see what happens. Okay. Now we're going to do a relationship inventory in real life. There's a concept called environmental design, which suggests that we are, I think the extreme of environmental design says that we are almost entirely nurture, like we're a product of our environment. And I'm sure you've heard that, we are reflective of the 5 people closest to us. And while I think there is a lot more wiggle room for our own kind of like personal effect on our environment, and there's a deep path that we can go down there, it is true that we are interdependent and interconnected and very much subject to what and who is around us. And so the empowered approach to that reality of being a human being, of being susceptible to those that are around us, is to take the power into your hands and choose to create a social environment, or, in the case of like your room, for example, or, where you choose to go to school, create an environment that is really going to be conducive to your best interests. So again, we're going to remove negative influences. You got to take stock. Like, am I am I running around with people that just make me feel worse about myself, that perpetuate the comparison? And there's an important nuance here, and this is a self-check. It's not to necessarily just put the blame on, these people and how they act. You also have to check yourself. Like, are they, is it really just coming from me, or am I in a space with negative influences that are triggering it within me? And having to make that distinction can be challenging. But if we're being really honest with ourselves, we can be pretty clear about who around us is good for us and worth our time and energy and attention, and who around us is creating more pain and discomfort and self-deprecation and comparison. And we need to walk away from those influences. On the flip side, we need to nurture positive influences. This comes back to that, looking up and getting inspired, surrounding yourself with people who build you up at the very least, if not whom you look up to. It can be really incredible. I mean, as a path to self-confidence and self-love and self-leadership, surround yourself with awesome fucking people, because those are the people that are going to help you be better, help you challenge yourself, help you love yourself better. So taking stock in real life and making discerned choices for yourself. Finally, the antidote to comparison is really self-confidence. And this kind of comes back to the belief systems that are at play that are keeping us stuck in comparison. And we can counteract that by deepening our sense of self, our connection to self, and recreating the way that we view ourselves, recreating our beliefs around who we are and what's possible and how we see ourselves in the world. And while the tendency, the social tendency to compare is going to be there, it's going to be smaller in the spaciousness of your own self-confidence. It's going to matter less and less. When your self-esteem and your self-confidence is really low and you don't really have a high quality self-concept, that comparison is going to be louder. It's a mechanism that's going to just run on overdrive. So while the previous 3 slides are about creating, ways to reduce the comparison, we also want to take this positive approach of building out the sense of self from which comparison doesn't have, any space to take root. It's just going to get kind of knocked out of the way. One of the things you can do is a values assessment, a strengths assessment. I will post links to ways that you can do that. There's a great company called VIA, and they do a strengths assessment online. You can just look at a values list and start to just get clear on, like, who am I? What are my strengths? What's my mission? What do I want to offer the world? What do I want to offer myself? What kind of life do I want to create? Like, that kind of clarity and building integrity and sense of self is going to establish a sense of confidence that's not so worried about what the fuck everyone else is doing, because you know what you're doing. Then we need to bring that into action. We need to embody that, like, as you get clear within your mind and in your heart, how do I act in integrity? How do I act in alignment with my values? How do I nurture my strengths? How do I pursue my mission? And every time we do that, we build self-trust. And the more self-trust that we build, the less comparing that we need to do. Finally, trust in your own path. This is not just about trusting in yourself, but trusting in, maybe this is the first time you're hearing it, but the rat race, one-size-fits-all approach to life and society is fucking bullshit, and you don't have to follow it. You have your own unique path. We all have our own unique path. And we get really stuck on that treadmill thinking that we're supposed to be running on this treadmill, and it's exhausting, and we flop and we smack our heads on the ground, and we're destined for burnout if we're trying to fit ourselves into a predetermined box that is not actually for us. So I invite you to trust that your path and your journey is absolutely beautiful and worth your 100% investment in yourself. And as you get more clear on your values, your strengths, your mission, and you act in integrity and you build that self-trust, you're going to more and more easily be able to just trust that even if you're doing something radically different than what your peers are doing, you know deep in your heart that you're doing what's best for you. And ultimately, what's best for you is what's best for the world. We have so much stymied creativity and authenticity and power to make the world a better place because of our tendency to compare, because of our tendency to try to fall into a box of what people around us are doing. So let this be an invitation to brave the discomfort of doing something different. We're all different. No one's the same. Your journey is unique. Stop looking around at other people's pies and focus on your own and enjoy that shit. Because that's the way to live your best life. So the self-confidence piece is about shifting your focus and you're powered inwardly. What I want to leave you with is kind of the overarching theme that's happening here. And this is the work that we do in self-leadership coaching, is learning to move the focus of your attention, your locus of control, inwardly. How do I establish sense of self and intrinsic motivation that's not so rattled by what the world around me is doing? Because again, we have these deeply ingrained mechanisms that are being poked by the rapid eruption of social media landscape, that our brains are like, what the fuck's going on? I'm trying to figure this shit out. And we get stuck in externalizing our sense of self, looking around to what other people are saying as if they get to determine who we are. And the biggest disservice to our human flourishing right now is that we're all trying to fit into a box at our own expense, and again, at the expense of what we can offer the world. That's why a lot of people are in a lot of pain, and there's a lot of anxiety, and you're feeling a lot of pressure because you think you have to be a certain way. And the comparison tendency is perpetuating our externalization of self. And if you apply and practice these steps that I have shared here with you today, you're going to compare less and you're going to feel more centered in yourself. And that's the way that you get to and can be the most incredible leader that you have in your capacity and in your potential, and to live your best life, which you deserve. And also the beautiful thing is that that's the best way to give back. We don't need more inauthentic, high pressure, running on the hedonistic treadmill rat race leaders. We need you to do the inner work, to learn to love yourself, to build this self-confidence, to act in integrity, and to stop looking around and comparing, so that you can go out there and offer your awesome fucking self to the world. Godspeed. I love you. I'm really grateful that you have listened all the way through here. And I promise you, you take one step at a time and continue to invest in yourself in this way, and not just learn, but act. You're going to change the world. You're going to make the world a better place, starting with your own. Lots of love. Have a beautiful now.